Yeah, so planning for success, that's what I'd like to talk about a little bit. Relationships with WPACs and the Government of Alberta. We've certainly got some ideas on how relationships should happen. We can probably do a whole lot better than maybe we've done in the past. And maybe I'm speaking for myself. I know the staff have been very committed to the WPAC program and have moved it along quite well. I have a real mishmash, excuse me, I have a real mishmash of slides here, and I take full responsibility for it. So if you can follow, that's great. If you can't, well, I guess we're all in trouble. I just wanted to put this up. This is what we call the noble cause of our division. So working with ESRD, I work with the Integrated Resource Management Planning Division, and my branch is the Resource Integration Planning Branch, affectionately known as RIPB. But anyway, we have this noble cause, and we developed it with staff over a number of weeks and months. But I think it gets at the nub of what we're trying to do from an integrated planning perspective. That is, through valued relationships, again, the group hug thing, we engage Albertans to plan for desired environmental outcomes and sustainable resource and land use while respecting the range of social, economic, and environmental benefits now and into the future. That speaks to me, certainly. And Andrew talked about, well, what do I love about the watershed? Well, I'm new to the Pigeon Lake area, so I don't know if I've developed a love for that watershed yet, but I'm sure it'll happen. I'm a forester by training. I think I was drawn to the outdoors and outdoor work just because of my love of nature and being outdoors, and probably being on my own, as most foresters like to be. The group thing is always a challenge. But as I've aged, let's say, as I've matured, you certainly understand that it's all about people and it's all about relationships. You can know all the science in the world, you can have all the data, you can have everything in place and all the money, but you can't move anything anywhere unless you've got relationships with people. So from my perspective, that's the love that really has to be shown in a watershed. And the WPACs are doing that very effectively in terms of bringing the right people to the table, showing the love for that natural environment, and also having those heart-to-heart conversations about the watershed and how we can do better. So that's my little love talk. I wanted to touch a little bit on government priorities. The minister spoke yesterday of his mandate letter and him having the longest one. But within that, I'm not sure if any of you have read that. They are on the website for all the ministries. So if you do have a chance, they are some interesting reading, and it certainly tells about the direction the government is headed and what their interests are. So government priorities, if you look at the government as a whole, so a focused commitment to sound conservative fiscal principles. So that's the money thing. And when it comes to WPACs, money is important, and government money in terms of grants is very important. They talk about ending entitlements and restoring the public trust. The minister didn't talk about that too much, but the public trust is certainly an interest of his, and I'm surprised he didn't say it as far as social license. That is one of his focus areas, and I think the government in general, they want to restore the public trust, and I think WPACs can go a long way to do that. Maximizing the value of our natural resources and respecting property rights, that's kind of understood. Establishing our province as an environmental leader, again, that should sit well and resonate with WPACs, because I think you're all working towards that. And increasing Albertans' quality of life by becoming the leader in areas of healthcare, education, and skills training. And maybe we're not into healthcare, but certainly the education is part of the WPAC program. And skills around that, as far as developing and mentoring and educating stakeholders, is certainly key. So Minister Fawcett said he's got the longest mandate letter, and yeah, he does. And it talks about a whole bunch of things. I've just put the list down there, and I'm not going to walk through them, but those are, it's hard to focus when you've got everything in your focus, right? But regardless, he's got a large ministry, and we are working on all these bits and pieces. However, the thing that you should know is that the first listed priority for Minister Fawcett is ensure Alberta's resources are developed using innovative, responsible approaches that protect Alberta's environment and provide a healthy Alberta for future generations. And I think that should fit and resonate very well with WPACs, because that's the type of work that the ministry is focused on, at least my part of the ministry, from an integrated planning perspective, but I also believe that WPACs have a very strong role in delivering that mandate. And then just a note from the Premier, Premier Prentice, who said, "I'm confident that we can meet the challenges ahead and leave a positive legacy for Alberta." And quite frankly, when listening to the conversations yesterday and the discussions and the presentations, I firmly believe that the WPACs believe that same message, that they can move things forward. We can do things better in Alberta, and we are part of the solution. So I think the alignment for me is very strong, at least at the very highest levels. Sharon Wilnan talked about this, and I'm not going to talk about it at all, other than it's a complicated diagram. Sharon took a bit of time explaining it, but the bottom line for all of us, and certainly within the department, is responsible resource development. And there's a bunch of pieces that go together, from policy and data and resources and money and the whole deal, and the integrated approach. But what it comes down to is responsible resource development. Some of you may have seen this. It's essentially a wheel that doesn't say it in so many words, but is essentially plan, do, check, adjust. So that's the planning cycle. You all go part of it as you build your plans. In any planning environment, you all work through that. So collaboration is key. Understanding, planning, and implementing is a very important role. We often do the planning very, very well, and the collaborating. The implementation is always a problem. We often blame money, we often blame staff, we often blame a whole bunch of things. But that implementation is key for us, and we see WPACs as key in the implementation phase of doing it well and moving things forward. And when I talk about implementation, I also think about land use framework regional plans. We are in the implementation phases of both the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan and the Lower Athabasca Regional Plan. And that's where we need assistance in implementing those plans effectively. And I think WPACs in those areas should be well centered on how they can support the government in moving those forward. So that's again an alignment piece that is necessary and of key importance for us within the government. I won't spend a lot of time on these. You've seen them many times before. The water for life outcomes, safe, secure drinking water. So really what it comes down to is social, economic, and environmental benefits as far as drinking water supply, healthy ecosystems, and sustainable economy type things. Key directions, knowledge and research partnerships, water conservation. WPACs are involved in all that and have been moving those in at various rates within various WPACs forward. This is, I'm sure if I asked, and I'm not going to, how many people have either seen, read, or heard about this book? Probably a lot. In government, we, as managers, we get indoctrinated into kind of the leadership practice. We're all students of this, and but the 5 practices of leadership include modeling the way, inspiring a shared vision, challenging a process, enabling others to act, and then encourage the heart. And we had that little heart discussion already today. But those are key things, and I think if you keep those in the back of your mind as far as the WPAC, and ask yourself the question, are we providing the leadership within our organization and to our stakeholders that is important and will move things forward? I think it is really key to advancing a cause. And there are certainly successes in modeling the way, and integration is very key to us. And there's some examples there. The Bow River Phosphorus Management Plan. Tremendous amount of effort went into that, a lot of expertise, bringing people together, but a very successful outcome. Industrial Heartland Water Management Framework, South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, Battle River Water Management Plan. All those are examples of some collaboration, integration, and successful outcomes. So certainly kudos to all those that were involved in those, and they are important from a government to move those forward. I asked the question at the bottom, and you'll see I've got a few questions scattered through my presentation here. What will integration look the same in the future? All these bits and pieces were built kind of before our government reorganized and restructured and did all that again. I know WPACs haven't changed that much, but we have. So I'm not sure if integration will look the same. We may have a different idea of what integration really is. There may be different players at the table. We've just joined with Parks now, so who knows? But I think that's something to think about, and we really need to put some time into that, making sure that the integration that at least brought these plans forward is replicated and maybe enhanced from that point. So we've got to look at that. Inspire shared vision, begin with the end in mind. Well, the WPAC program outcomes are pretty simple. Again, a long list and very, a lot of words, but I picked out a few of the key ones for me. So WPACs in terms of actively participating with Albertans, building partnerships, and Albertans are informed about the good things and about the bad things, about the work that's going on. There should be efficiencies in service and effectiveness of action. So it's one thing to build a plan. It's another thing to say that this plan does the things and achieves the outcomes that we expected. So it's got to be effective at doing the things that we want. Managers are empowered, informed, and make informed decisions. So that's part of the information base that you're supplying from WPACs and can move this forward. It works within WPACs as far as making decisions and recommendations, and it works for government as well. So there should be alignment there. And Andre spoke to some of that before, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And then continuous improvement, adaptation, and learning. And I see forums like this as a great learning opportunity. Certainly the interaction with each other and sharing the love. Right, Andrew?
It's all about the love.
All about the love. So some expectations, and this, I don't believe there's anything new here. You've heard this many, many times, but I'm going to say it just to make the point. So stakeholders, engage them early, engage them often. They have to feel part of the solution, not part of the problem, and they have to feel engaged and like they're being heard. So meaningful engagement. Try to maintain a neutral and inclusive forum. So again, open dialogue and collaboration on some shared goals. Explore and evaluate options for resource management that support the watershed goals. So there's some new stuff out there. But you also have to consider, what are the implications for the government? What are the implications for the watershed, the stakeholders, and all those participants? So it's not just throwing out an idea, it's throwing out an idea and testing it, and retesting it, and asking the question. And then articulate what success is for you and for your partners. I probably should have put the government in there too. So bottom line for us, WPACs are an integral component of ESRD's planning system. There's no question at all. I mentioned the land use framework planning. At the initial stages of developing a plan, we need the information that's provided from WPACs for consideration within those, as far as building a regional plan. And then we need that very strongly on the implementation side, where your projects and some of the research work that's done should be dovetailing very nicely with those regional plans and advancing those. Build strong working relationships and formalize business process. I'd like to look at that, certainly from a government perspective. There's always money challenges, there's always staff challenges from my side of the fence anyway. And I think we've got to find some efficiencies there and see that money is really spent on those priority items that are important to the government and yourselves, and make a difference on the land. And the bottom line is probably making a difference on the land. And look for opportunities to provide broader levels of support. And again, demonstrated value, integrated performance measures, and committed partner investment. Now, this is my messy part of the presentation. And my rambling observations, a potpourri of ideas. And for those that don't know what potpourri is, I'm always telling my wife, she drags me to these stores that smell like potpourri, and I said, oh, I think I'll sit outside and eat ice cream or something like that. But anyway, I get into those every once in a while. Potpourri, a mixture of dried petals of roses or other flowers with spices kept in a jar for their fragrance. So there you go. I'm not convinced they're always kept in a jar. They seem to be just fragranting all over the place. Anyway. So I mentioned the social license thing. So it's the social license for responsible resource development. That's where a minister's coming from, and that's where the government's coming from. So, obvious questions. What is it, and where do I get one? Is this really a license? Like, what is it? Is it continuous like my trailer, or does it expire? Once I have one, what can I do with it? Is it valid in other countries? And according to Harry, environment is a dirty word. And that's part of the social license thing. If environment is a dirty word, then it's obvious we don't have public trust. We don't have social license to look after responsible resource development. And this is key for the work that we live in. So I said, tongue in cheek, is it valid in other countries? Well, guess what? Your social license isn't just for Edmonton, isn't just for Calgary, isn't just for Alberta. isn't just for Canada or North America. It's worldwide right now. And we look at developing resources. The resources that we produce in Alberta are under the scrutiny. How we produce them and what we produce and how clean or dirty they are under the scrutiny of the globe right now. So it's not restricted to us. But I think WPAC should be asking themselves, are we gaining social license, however you define it? And I think the government's going to come up and define it at some point. And certainly we're working on those types of things. If Sharon was here, Sharon Willen, and she'd tell you that we're working on those types of things right now. And what does it really mean? But I think for WPACs to be effective and for the government to be effective, we have to be gaining social license. We've got to be measuring our movement forward on achieving that and have that measure of public trust. And that's a real tough one. The other thing I noticed from yesterday's presentations was that WPACs as a whole are a group to be reckoned with. There's 20, I saw the stats yesterday, 2,600 plus, those are 212 stats, it's probably more than that. This is probably a conservative number too, 2,600 people. That used to be the size of our ministry before we started adding on parks and a few other bits and pieces. So I asked the question, is your impact and influence comparable to a small ministry? And granted, the funding is different. Granted, you don't have permanent staff, 2,600 permanent staff, all that sort of thing. But is that a goal that you should be looking towards, is increasing the impact, increasing the influence? We have a lot of people. Are we using them to our maximum advantage? And I think you can. I think you can. Barriers to effective management. Maggie talked about this, about a risk assessment yesterday. She said the risks have not changed in 3 years. I get that. I can accept that. How much is within the WPAC control? Probably a fair amount. How much is within the control of government? Probably a fair amount of those as well. But are we advancing our ability to mitigate the risks more effectively? So is your work as a WPAC, in fact, making the risks seem minor or less of a risk than they were initially thought of? And the data pilot, thanks for acknowledging that, because we are putting work into that. I talked to Brendan this morning and passed on your thanks and acknowledgement that the data pilot is moving forward. We do want to share information. Sometimes we just don't know what we have to give you or what you want from us. And if you've asked before, I can't make apologies for the past, but certainly as far as I'm concerned, if we have data that's under our control, I have no problem sharing it for the benefit of WPACs or anything else that's necessary. So keep that in mind. Tell us what you need and we'll do what we can to get that out to you. Test assumptions. This came from Andre yesterday. So include the right groups. I think you are. You've got the right groups, you've got the right people. Maybe there's more. First Nations is a key consideration for the Government of Alberta, and as such, you should be, I know the door is always open and the welcome sign is always up, but sometimes it takes a little bit of extra effort. But I think that's some places where the government can help, in fact, identify some First Nations individuals that may be willing to help or sit on boards and who knows what. But I'll throw that out. Another key consideration, we have trouble with that within the government. Ensure information flows from WPAC out to the group and back again. To make sure that the information is hitting those that need to and that you get the commentary back. Just because an individual represents a group doesn't always necessarily mean that the information flows back and forth, and that's key, and we find that all the time. Test understandings and assumptions, and I think that's with the government. And to build alignment, if Mark was talking about that yesterday, that if we're not in alignment, you throw something up, make recommendations, and they just kind of sit. The government can't do anything with them. I think that's a problem with not testing assumptions all the way up and getting that alignment that we need. So that's vitally important. We can do better with that. WPACs can also do better and make sure that it's important to them. And no surprises, please. Governments don't like surprises. I couldn't help think when Rhonda was talking about good fences making good neighbors. So relationships take constant care and nurturing. Alignment with stick and a carrot. We don't like that approach as far as sticks. Carrots are good. Sugar's even better. educate partners. But I think a key point that Rhonda made was inform MLAs, again, government, how your work helps them make better decisions. It's not just about what you're doing, it's how your work lets them make better decisions, or their ministries make better decisions. So that's key and vital. This came up, and my mind wanders when I do these things. WPAC gross domestic product. So this is from Harry yesterday. How can we make apathetic masses fall in love with the watershed? Well, he did that as far as the shoreline cleanup. He increased from 25 to 257, from 25 participants to 257. That's a pretty good growth. What's your WPAC's annual growth or reach? And is this part of your annual plan? Do you actually plan for this? And maybe you should. Maybe you should be planning on growth. And I'm seeing nods from Tim, so that's good. You obviously do. But if you're not thinking about that, you probably should. And are there WPAC performance measures relative to growth? Mark talked about I talk about deep versus broad knowledge. They've got a lot of experts, a lot of expertise within WPACs, very, very deep scientific knowledge, deep watershed knowledge. Is it equally as broad? And I think that was my question. Do you have a broad knowledge of environmental issues? You probably do. But within the government, we have a very broad look at Alberta and the environmental issues. And we've got to bring those into alignment somehow so that all the pieces are looked after. This is more from Mark. I'm skipping through these things. He made some good points. Again, highly skilled. I was astounded at the high level of interest, of education, of commitment to the WPAC program and to water in general. And it's evidenced by you here today and the conversations that go on. So you should all give yourselves a pat in the back, but you've also got to use that, and you are. So delivering a shared vision, I agree. If you provide advice and recommendations, it's reasonable to expect a government response, and I would like to see that happen. So if it's not happening, I think we need to do better as a government. Understand the process and timelines. We can help you with that. Government is process, and lots of timelines, and it changes every time we change a minister, a deputy minister, an ADM, you name it, it changes. Know who makes the decision. Sometimes that's part of the confusion. Got to get it to the right person, make sure it gets there. And again, measures of effectiveness. WPAC program opportunities, collective versus individual. I believe that WPACs as a collective in the province have a very strong voice, and I think they can have a stronger voice if they did more things like this and came together as a WPAC program rather than individuals as watersheds. And this is kind of my personal observation and thoughts right now. So I think you need to have effective and ongoing dialogue with the government and between WPAC. So I would like to see something like that happen a little more regularly. I can look after the government thing. You have to kind of work after the WPAC, between WPACs. Maybe it happens a lot more than I know. I don't know. Share resources. I think there's economies of scale that can happen if you do share resources across people, money, programs, you name it, and expertise. All that is important from a provincial program perspective. And again, align the program with GOA provincial initiatives. I talked about some of them before, land use framework planning in particular, and find integrated approaches to priority work. Now, I like some of these statements I got yesterday from Jose. Celebrate widely the bright spots. Don't always say the watershed is bad. We're working on this because it's so degraded. There's some really bright spots in a lot of these. This is part of the love affair with your watershed, as Andrew was talking about. Share the love. Tell them about all the great stuff that's going on. And we're also working at the problem areas because we want the whole thing to be bright and shiny. Attack common watershed problems. Jeff just spoke with that, and I think common to me is there are some provincial interests that are common to all watersheds, and I think as a group you can probably look at those. Demonstrate exemplary governance common to well-established organizations. I think you can learn from each other. The more seasoned WPACs can help mentor and bring the newer WPACs along. They can share ideas, they can share administrative process. You don't have to reinvent it every time. Advance the cause using the voice of 2,600 plus watershed experts. You've got a tremendous momentum there and tremendous inertia. Use it and then continue the dialogue. So thank you very much.